So I'm going to make a quick video today. I was actually requested by a Reddit user to make a quick video on how I make my pins. Now, in all honesty, they're pretty simple. You'll need a few tools. This is off-brand, but I've got an X-Acto knife for really fine cuts. I have a hacksaw. Now the hacksaw, this is not the finest toothed one. It is only 18 teeth per inch. But the more teeth, the better, because you can get into the brass and bite into the brass better. I also use a variety of small needle files for for shaving off finer amounts. And I use a large round one if I'm looking for getting a good, like a nice deep spool that I want to have a little bit of a curve to it. I also use a Dremel. Now, all these combined, you shouldn't have to pay more than about $80 for the initial startup cost. As you can see, I already have chucked up a length of brass rod. I do not use stock driver pins. Stock driver pins are small. They don't have a lot of room to work with, and therefore you're going to get it can be very difficult to get good clean cuts on. Now, you don't need to have a really powerful one. This is only a $50 one that only goes up to about 20,000 RPMs. Now, one thing to note, as a warning, Dremel is quiet, as you just heard. Metal on metal is not quiet, so this may get a little loud really quickly. Okay, first thing I do, get the cord untangled. That's the first thing I do, so I have a little more room to work. Some people push down, some people push up. For me, it depends on what I'm doing and what my cut is. So my first cut always going to be the same cut. It's the length cut. How long do I want my driver to be? In this particular case, because I'm going to be showing off a few more cuts, I'm probably going to do it a little bit longer. So as you can see, there is now, if the camera will focus, a mark there. That is going to designate where the pin ends. Everything I do will be, well, based on the camera angle, be to the right of that cut. Now, one thing I forgot to do, ear protection. As I said, it gets loud. So now that I got my first cut down, now what do I want to do? First off, I want to make a slight T on there. So I have a triangular file. You can use any sort of flat-edged file for this. You literally just kind of push it up against the edge. Generally, for something like this, because you're looking to remove a lot of material, you want to go faster. And as soon as the file pulled out my brass rod a little bit. There we go. Occasionally, I will switch to a larger file, like something like this. You can cut in a little bit deeper. faster removal. Now this on focus, almost like a slightly serrated T. I'm okay with that. It'll provide, for me personally, I'll polish that off later. I think we can probably polish off a little bit right now. There we go, got a nice T right there. Now, to cut a spool, generally you would take a flat file of the width you'd want. I sometimes use a round file. I won't stop pulling out my rod. Now you can see I've got a nice rounded spool right there. Now you can go back in . With a saw, and somewhat smooth off the edge. I'll show a still of what that looks like a little bit later. But this, because it's not an even spool, this can provide some ugly feedback. And that's what you're looking for. You're looking for ugly feedback when it comes time to the final picker. Now, as far as a serration goes, little gap right there. I got that little gap. I'm going to put a serration in that. Sure the stock's all the way in. Use your X-Acto saw, which is used to make that initial cut. Nice little serration right there to mess them up. Do another serration right here. And as you can see on that, you got an exceptionally deep serration. And one thing to know about brass is it warms up pretty quickly. So you're definitely going to want to be conscious of that when coming in contact with these. That's why I use this. That's why I use tools so I can keep my hands away from it. Now, I don't have a half diamond file, or one of those half rounded ones, because if you use one of those, you can get a nice little, and you use it correctly, you can get a good mushroom shape on there. I'm going to clean that up just a little bit. Using the edge of the triangular file, the corner here, Now you create hang cut. Sorry if that was off camera. Not used to making pins on camera. We're used to putting locks on camera. Very different angles for me. Trying to get the focus for you. There we go. I think I got focus. But you see, you got a nice deep right there. So now, pin is done. We want to take it off. Well, I would use some 1000 grit right now and probably polish off just a little bit. But functionally, it is done. Take your let this all back out. And then the initial cut we made to determine the length. As now razor thin. Back thin enough it doesn't really want to show you. For me personally, the way I take it off without burning myself, very carefully just push it up against the mat. There we go. Brand new pin. Now, some people, for functionality, for aesthetic sake, there's a little nib there from the previous pin I made. Barely see it. And there's a nib there from where I cut it off on this one. Some people will sand those off. Some people won't. It's up to you. This one probably would put in a counter milled chamber, maybe a threaded chamber, just to wreak a little havoc on people. That T-pin's going to have that T portion right there. It's not the flattest T-pin portion. It'll definitely do the trick as far as messing up people's feedback. And that is what you are looking for. So yeah, thanks for watching. And this is the basics of making a pin using a Dremel. Obviously it's a little rough, but I'm doing a little quick, just a quick video.